السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. من يهدي الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My dear sisters, my dear daughters, welcome back to a new episode of Mothers of Believers. And I would like to apologize about the wrong link I already sent you. It was actually not that link, but alhamdulillah, I sent the right one. I would like to welcome you all, and inshallah, today we're going to continue our journey with our mother, Safiya. Remember, Safiya was last mother we stopped at her in our last lesson. Safiya bint Huyay bint Ibn Akhtab, and we mentioned that Safiya she was the daughter of the chief of the Banu Nadir tribe. They were Jewish tribe, and her father, we mentioned that he was one of the very prominent enemies to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And how she entered Islam and then married the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And she was all the time caring about him and afraid that her tribe may may cause harm to him or may assassinate him by a way or another. And this was actually multiple trials happened by the Jews at that time in order to in attempt to kill the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Now we stopped at her statement, my father is Aaron and my uncle is Moses. And this was a beautiful story happened between Sayyida Safiya and Sayyida Aisha and Sayyida Hafsa. One day Sayyida Safiya complained to the Prophet about Sayyida Aisha and Sayyida Hafsa, who has said to her that as they were from Quraysh, they were Arab from Quraysh, and they were closer to the Prophet than her because they were from the same tribe and Arab and not from the Jews. So she felt sad about that, and she mentioned this to the Prophet ﷺ, who mentioned to her, why didn't you tell them, how can you be more blessed than me? By the Prophet is telling her that you should have told them that how can you more be blessed than me? My husband is a prophet Muhammad, and my father is a prophet Aaron, and my uncle is prophet Moses. Thus teaching her how to respond to them and comforting her. Actually, her tribe from the Banu Nadir, they are the descendants of Prophet Aaron. That's why he told her to tell Sayyida Aisha and Sayyida Hafsa that her father was Prophet Aaron or Harun, and her uncle was Prophet Moses. During the last days of Prophet Muhammad's life, he continued to stretch his protective wings over Sayyida Safiya until the day he died. We mentioned that Sayyida Safiya, she has no one except the Prophet ﷺ. Her relatives were disbelievers, and her father also passed away with her uncle, and they were both disbelievers. So he was very protective and very kind to her. And during his illness, she mentioned that, O Prophet of Allah, I swear to Allah, I wish that the trouble you are undergoing now would come to me. She was very sad during the last illness of the Prophet ﷺ, and she wished to be the one who is suffering, not the Prophet ﷺ. When we come to the virtues of Sayyida Safiya, we'll find that she was a person who was intelligent, gentle, and virtuous. While Sayyida Safiya was alive, she loved to give in charity and to do good for others. In fact, she gave her entire house in charity. And we mentioned before the character of giving and the character of charity. It seems to be most of, or not most, all the wives of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, they used to do that. We mentioned this in every seerah or in every CV or in every story of our mothers. Also, Sayyida Safiya loved the Prophet Muhammad very much, as we mentioned that he considered to be everything for her. Regarding to the death of Sayyida Safiya, she died during the Caliphate of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, around the 50 or the 52nd year of Hijrah, and she was buried in the Baqi' cemetery, and she reported around 10 hadith. There was 10 hadith reported by Sayyida Safiya radiallahu anha. Now, when we come to the lessons that we learned from the life of our mother Safiya, Sayyida Safiya first heard about Islam while still young and Jews. We mentioned that. We mentioned that she used to listen to her father and to her uncle, and that made her think about Islam very early. And when she has her dream about the moon is from the Medina is coming to her, it was like a glad tiding for her that she will be the wife of the Prophet. So her tribe and family looked on the Prophet with hatred, as he hadn't come from the Jewish people. And Sayyida Safiya grew up in such environment. And despite this environment of blind hatredness and bigotry, her heart was not blackened. And this was very something very actually interesting, that although the whole environment she grew and she used to live in was full of a hatred and opposition towards the Prophet, she was very logic in her way of thinking. She was not affected by her relatives. Her perception were not blinded. Her heart was not hardened. At the first opportunity when she felt free to do so, she chose Islam. So our lesson from here, that our own preferences should always be with Allah and His Prophet. Even if all the people around us are doing wrong things, it is not a justification for us to follow them. Because when you're going to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during the day of resurrection, you will be accountable for what you are doing and for what your deeds. You will not say, my mother told me, my father told me, my husband told me. No one will help you at that day. So be sure that you will not be in the trap of doing sins because others are doing, even if those others are very close relatives to you. Another lesson, the affection she felt for the Prophet ﷺ became so great that immediately after their marriage, Sayyida Safiya was afraid that her tribe would cause harm to the Prophet, and she undertook the protection of the Prophet against every kind of danger. And this we can learn from that how she felt the importance of the Prophet ﷺ, how she felt how much he is precious for her and for Islam. And this is what also we should feel towards the Prophet ﷺ, and in order to feel this affection towards the Prophet, we have to follow his sunnah, to follow his orders, to follow his hadith, in order to have this affection towards him. Also, the Prophet did not hold back from responding to this affection and respect. He was with her constantly, relieving the pressure that occurring upon her return from Khaybar. Returning from Khaybar, she lost her father and her uncle and many relatives. It was not an easy thing for her. The Prophet ﷺ, all the time he tried to console her and comfort her, and was, as we mentioned, was everything for her. This situation of the Prophet is a good example of how a man should protect his wife against pressure and problems that come from those around them, and how he should reassure and comfort his wife in times of trouble. This is also, I can say, it is a mutual role. The wife and the husband, both of them should carry this role, how to be feel about each other, how to console each other, how to comfort each other if one of them having trouble or having pressure because of any external causes. As we mentioned, like the other wives of the Prophet ﷺ, our mother Sayyida Safiya had impeccable morals, was generous. Her action of charity and assistance encouraged us to do the good actions. And inshallah, at the end of our series, I think that we will going to have a discussion about what we learned, the most thing that we're going to do after finishing this series to follow our mothers. And I think one of the most important things is giving and sharing others and giving charity. This is one of the most important lessons that we're going to learn from the seerah or from the story of our mothers. Also, the lessons we learned from the story of our mother Sayyida Safiya. The religion of Islam has never been a religion that belongs to any race. We mentioned that she was the only Jewish wife for the Prophet. The others were all from the Arabs, and she was only the Jewish one. But she was considered to be our mother because she already entered Islam and she became Muslim. Originally, she was Jewish, and this is something that's not important in Islam. Islam is not differentiating between any race or tribe or class. And according to Islam, there are two nations, the nation of the believers and the nations of the unbelievers. After a person believes in Islam, no matter what tribes, what race, what social status they come from, they are considered to be a sibling of other believers with equal rights. This is Islam. This is Islam, the anti-racist religion, the anti-discriminative religion, the religion that only have the discrimination is based on the taqwa, on fear of Allah and how much you are righteous. This will make you better than others. This will make you at a higher grade within Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than others. So this is the only regulator here we have, or the only measure is taqwa. It is not the color, it's not the race, it's not the social or financial class. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hadith sahih, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that Allah is looking and assessing your hearts, not your faces. So the heart is the most important. The heart is a place of the taqwa. If there is taqwa in the heart, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will elevate this person and give this believer a very respectable and honor him during the day of resurrection. There is also a very nice story about one of the companions. His name is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, one of the early people who entered Islam, and he was one of the narrators of the hadith about the Prophet, and he was thin and short and has very thin legs. So one day he was climbing on a palm tree in order to bring some dates. The companion looked at him and started laughing to his very thin legs. So the Prophet was with them. He told them, "You are laughing to his legs? By Allah, he made an oath by Allah that these two legs for in the balance during the day of restriction will be heavier than the mountain of Uhud. The mountain of Uhud is a very huge mountain present in Medina. So Allah is telling them its degree of these two legs is equivalent to the in honor and in righteous and in rewards will be like the mountain of Uhud. So this hadith also taught us that we never judge people by their appearance, because maybe a very simple person that you are not thinking that he will be having any a priority or having any importance in the society will be better than the president even, or the prime minister of that country. So this is very important. Islam is honoring all the believers according to what came in the Quran and in the Sunnah. We finished the story of Sayyida Safiya, and now we'll come to another mother of our mothers. Her name is Sayyida Habiba bint Abi Sufyan. Remember, we mentioned two previous wives who were the daughters of leaders. Now, in our previous lessons, we mentioned two of our mothers were the daughter of leaders. Who can tell me? We just finished one now. This is the one we finished, her name. I will not mention her name. And there was a previous one, also was the daughter of a leader. Who can send me the answer? The name of two mothers we took before. Their fathers were leaders of their tribe. Who can tell me? I'm waiting. Waiting for the answers. Okay, we have an answer here. Let's see. Sayyida Safiya. Yes, Sister Zubaydah. Excellent. Who else? We just mentioned Sayyida Safiya. This is very good. Who else? Who else? We mentioned her name. Her father also was a leader. Who else than Sayyida Safiya? Who can tell me? Her father name was Al-Harith. Al-Harith. And he was the leader of the tribe named Banu al-Mustaliq. Yes, excellent, Fadwa Juwayriya. Excellent. May Allah bless you. Yes, it is Juwayriya bint al-Harith. Her father also was the leader of the Banu al-Mustaliq tribe. So now we have two daughters of leaders were the wives of the Prophet after that. And this is the third one we have today with us, Sayyida Habiba bint Abi Sufyan. So Abu Sufyan was the leader of Mecca at that time, and she was, okay, Hala, excellent, ya Hala. Excellent, ya Hala, for your answer. May Allah bless you, Habibti. So Abu Sufyan was the leader of Mecca at that time, and his daughter is Habiba. Now we'll come to Habiba. Who is our mother? Sayyida Habiba. Habiba was born 17 years before the start of the prophethood. Before that, the Prophet ﷺ became has a prophethood. We mentioned that the age when the Prophet took the message, it was around 40 years. So 17 years before that. So she was born when the Prophet ﷺ around 23. He was 23 years old at that time. Then at that time she was born. She was of the Umayyah tribe. Her tribe name was Umayyah. And her father was the chief of Quraysh, Abu Sufyan ibn Harb, his name. Her brother is Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan will be the first Amir after the finishing of the ending of the period of Khilafah. There were Khilafah Rashida came between the four Khalifas, Abu Bakr wa Umar wa Uthman wa Ali, and then after that the start of the state of Banu Umayyah started, and the first one of the Amir al-Mu'minin at that time was her brother Muawiyah. Muawiyah, her brother Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. Her mother was named Safiya bint Abi al-As ibn Umayyah, also from the same tribe, Umayyah tribe. And Umayyah also is a tribe where Osman ibn Affan radiallahu anh, the third Khalifa, were from a Umayyah tribe. طيب, Habiba real name was Ramla. Ramla, her original name, but she was called Habiba after her first daughter from her first husband Abdullah ibn Jahsh. She's supposed to marry before the Prophet. Her first husband his name was Abdullah ibn Jahsh, and he married her in Mecca. And actually, both of them, they entered Islam when the Prophet ﷺ started to invite to Islam. They were from the beginners. When Prophet Muhammad started to call people to the religion, they were subjected to tortures and oppression in Mecca, as we mentioned before. And this was the reason that they joined the second group that immigrated from Mecca to Abyssinia or Ethiopia. Remember, we've mentioned the first migration to Ethiopia was on two groups, first group and second group. So they were from the second group that went to Ethiopia, where they can practice their religion freely. And we mentioned that the king at that time, the Najashi of Abyssinia, welcomed the members of this new religion, and actually he became Muslim. He believed in Islam and became Muslim, and that's why he considered to welcome all the migrated Muslims to him. And in Habasha or Abyssinia or Ethiopia now, considered to be the first station for those who were for the migrants from Mecca, from the Muslims, from the early Muslims, and then who migrated after that to Medina when the other group of Muslims present in Mecca, they migrated to Medina. After many years, they were called by the Prophet to come back to Medina, as we're going to see, inshallah. But something bad happened actually to her husband. Her husband turned back to disbelieving. Her husband apostatized and became Christian. When he actually, Ethiopia at that time, it was a Christian country. And even Najashi was Christian, but he was a Christian that he is not on those who are on the deviated Bible or Injil. He was knowing that Prophet Isa was a messenger and he was not God. That's why when the Muslim came with the message of Islam, he entered Islam and he believed in Islam. But actually, he couldn't manifest that, or he couldn't make it clear because he was surrounded by a lot of priests and a lot of important people in the country. So he didn't want to make like turbulence, but actually internally he was a believer and he was Muslim. So the general role of Ethiopia was Christianity at that time. They are practicing Christianity. Abdullah ibn Jahsh, he turned to Christianity, he left Islam, and moreover, he asked his wife, Habiba or Ramla, to become Christian like him. Look how much it's very difficult. And in fact, he exerted pressure on her to convert. However, what she did, Habiba strongly opposed this and resisted her husband. Before much time had passed, he divorced her. Now, this is an example of how the wife shouldn't obey her husband when it comes to the religion. When it comes to religion, when it comes to something that Allah ordered her to do and he doesn't want her to do, she shouldn't obey him. She must disobey him, even if it reaches to a divorce. So when Habiba first husband returned to Christianity, so the only solution at that time for her is to have a divorce. She cannot continue with a disbeliever, and especially that she felt that he will not come back to Islam, and this is of course was something bad for her, but she insisted that she will not live with him. She will not live with him anymore because he is a disbeliever and she is a Muslim lady, and it's not approved. This will not be approved under any circumstances. She should have divorced from him. Now I want to ask you a question just to refresh your memory. We have before one of our mothers, also she migrated to Habasha or to Abyssinia with her first husband also. But her first husband was good, very good for her. And then they migrated to Medina, and then he died at Medina, and she married then after that the Prophet. Anyone knows the name of this mother? Anyone can send me the name of our mother, another mother that she migrated also to Abyssinia with her husband, but the other one, she has a good husband, first husband. Who migrated also with her husband before? Anyone knows? Oh, it seems that you are forgetting the previous lessons, actually, the previous lectures. Anyone remember who's our mother that before we took that migrated with her first husband also to Habasha, but he was good to her? No. Hafsa, she didn't migrate actually. Hafsa and Aisha, they didn't migrate. No. We already took Sauda. No, not Sauda. Not Sauda. You remember our mother that we mentioned about her that she was being separated from her husband forcefully by Mecca? Yes, Laraib, excellent. Ummu Salama. Excellent, Laraib. May Allah bless you. Very good answer. Excellent. So Ummu Salama, yes, she is the one who migrated with her husband, and he was very good and he loved her so much to the degree that he made dua that when he passed away to have a good husband after him. And this is actually what happened when he passed away after Ghazwat Badr. The Prophet ﷺ married her after that. So now back to Ramla or Habiba. Now we mentioned that her husband divorced her after turned away from Islam, and now she was living and sitting alone in Habasha. She can't come back to Mecca because of her father, and still in Mecca is the leader of the disbelievers. Also, she couldn't reside in peace in Abyssinia, and she couldn't return to Mecca because her father Abu Sufyan had started a merciless war against the Prophet, and she is Muslim. And when she returned back as Muslim, she will be tortured and she will be punished by her father. So what she will do? So one night she had a dream. Again, the dream. The dream came to Sayyida Juwayriyah. The dream came to Sayyida Safiya, as we mentioned before, and now the dream is coming to Sayyida Habiba. In her dream, someone called her Ya al-Mu'mineen, oh mother of believer. So she knows that if she will have this title, al-Mu'mineen, or the mother of believers, so she must marry the Prophet to have this title. So she interpreted this dream to mean that she would marry the Prophet. This dream comforted her for somewhat lightening for her sorrow. What happened? It was the proposal of the Prophet ﷺ, but how the proposal took place. Remember, it is the 7th Hijri year now, and the Prophet in Medina, Habiba in Ethiopia or in Habasha. And now the Prophet knows about her and about her story and about what happened from her husband. So now he's proposing to her from Medina by sending message to the king of Habasha or Abyssinia, Najashi. Sayyida Habiba radiallahu anha tell us, while in Abyssinia, nothing thrilled me such as the news that a concubine had been brought by Najashi in voice. The Najashi sent for her his servant or his slave. She informed me that she wanted to talk to me, and I agreed to meet her. The servant from Najashi, she went to a Sayyida Habiba house, and she told her the Prophet of Allah has written a letter to the king of Abyssinia saying he wants to marry you. So she said, may Allah give you even more blessed tidings. She was very happy. It's such an honor. It's such an honor that the Prophet ﷺ will send to the king of the country she is having or staying in order to propose to her. She said, the king has asked you to appoint a representative for the marriage, because any woman, when she will going to marry, she must have a representative for her, or wali. In Arabic, it is wali. She said, then I called my cousin Khalid ibn Sa'id ibn al-As and made him my representative, one of her relatives. Then the Najashi actually made for her like a ceremony, or made for her like a wedding celebration. He made a short speech in keeping with the request of the Prophet, and he made an announcement that the Prophet one is proposed to Sayyida Habiba, and he gave her the mahr, or the dowry is 400 dinar and necklace. The next morning, Najashi concubine or slave or servant knocked on Sayyida Habiba door. She had a lot of gifts sent by the Najashi himself. Najashi, the king of the Habasha, turned to the companion who were about to leave and said, it is the sunnah of the Prophet to give a meal after a marriage, and offered them a wedding feast. So the Najashi actually also was making for her the wedding feast. We're making the celebration, we made a speech, announced to all the people that the Prophet proposed to a Sayyida Habiba, and she will go to him with her representative and with others from the Muslims. And at that time, actually, they returned to Medina at the 7th Hijri year, when the Prophet told Najashi actually to make the Muslims there to return back. Let the Muslims there in Habasha to return back to Medina, and Habiba was with them. When she returned to Medina, she told the Prophet about the wedding ceremony and showed him the perfumes she had been presented with. Prophet Muhammad didn't forbid her from using it. He was happy also. This marriage, which took place in the 7th Hijri year, was a great reward for Sayyida Habiba devotion to Islam. And this is another important lesson, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will compensate you. If you left something for the sake of Allah, Allah will make it up more better than you left, will compensate you with much better than you left. This is a principle. This is a principle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala treating his righteous people, the people who devoted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and wanted his sake. Allah will never leave them, will never leave them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will compensate. Allah will make after the hardship easiness. So be sure all the time you have to stick to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned. You don't obey any person, even the closest person to your life, if it comes to your religion. If it comes to your religion, no, thank you, stop, I can't obey you, whatever the consequences will happen. Because actually, subhanallah, my sisters and my daughters, everything by Allah will, everything by Allah decree. If you made Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can make for you everything you wish, can change the hearts of people for you, can offer you whatever is to comfort you and to make you happy. So if you already on the path of Allah, if you already do whatever you can in the obeying of Allah, how Allah will leave you? Never, never. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He just have the mercy. He wrote on Himself the mercy before the punishment. This has been written under the arsh or under the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He wrote, my mercy is overwhelming or over controlling my anger. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the merciful, the all merciful, the most merciful. If you do anything for His sake, He will never let you down. Just be sure about that. When Abu Sufyan learned about this marriage, now Habiba, she returned back to Al-Madinah, and of course the news started to flourish, and the news fled to Mecca. And Mecca, the leader of Mecca was Abu Sufyan. And when he learned about the marriage, he said, remember that at that time, the 7th Hijri year, it was the first year after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Remember the Hudaybiyah, the treaty happened between the disbelievers in Mecca in the 6th Hijri year. So it was the first year after that. There was no war, there was no battle between the Muslims and disbelievers of Mecca at that time. And when Abu Sufyan heard about the marriage of his daughter to the Prophet, what he mentioned, he said, he referred to the Prophet Muhammad is a man who is not to be refused, and approved the marriage. Here, actually, it is not a strange thing from Abu Sufyan, because he knows the Prophet ﷺ, he raised with them, he knows his morals, he knows his behavior, and he knows that they are wrong from inside, but only they are making this war and opposition against the Prophet because of their financial benefits and for their business and for jealous that the Prophet is not from their tribe. A lot of things, but internally, from the internal of their heart, they know that the Prophet was a truth teller and he's really the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Najashi, as we mentioned, according to the request of the Prophet ﷺ, sent the Muslims in 2 ships. And during this journey, Sayyida Habiba was accompanied by Shurahbil ibn Hasana. And on the day that Sayyida Habiba and the Muslims reached Medina, that day the Prophet was returning from the conquest of Khaybar. Remember when we mentioned about Khaybar, that this was the last battle with the Jews during the life of the Prophet ﷺ. And he was happy by this conquest because a lot of spoils, a lot of booty came from this conquest. And at that time, the Muslims were very poor and were real in need of support at that time. So he was very happy because of those things by the Muslims coming from Al-Habasha, including his wife, Habiba, and also he was happy by the conquest of Khaybar. That's why he was doubly pleased on that day for both 2 things. Sayyida Habiba, when she actually arrived, the Prophet ﷺ prepared for her a room beside the room of other wives he has. In the evening, when Prophet Muhammad came to the room, he was aware of a lovely scent, and after seeing the floor covering, said, Quraysh women are ones who decorate everything and make a home. He wants to encourage her and to praise her. These words were in appreciation of Sayyida Habiba, cleanness and skill at setting up the home. Sayyidah Habiba affection for the Prophet, she was very great. In fact, there is a hadith that suggests that she used the term beloved. She used to say when she talks about the Prophet ﷺ, all the time she say beloved Habibi when talking about him, which give us how much the affection that Habiba. And what type of affection? Of course, she will be affected. She married the Prophet ﷺ, خير خلق الله, the best of the mankind, and the one who saved her from being alone and being honored by marrying her, and the one who held or was intermediate in this marriage was the king of the Abyssinia. What an honor she has. Of course, she will be happy that she been with the Prophet ﷺ. But what happened after that? Her father is coming to Medina. Why her father is coming? What happened? What will be the events after that? This is what we're going to know inshallah next time. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.